Hello and welcome back to my channel, Refreshing Words with Danielle Brooks. I am continuing my series on my healing journey, MayDay A to Z. Today, the letter is D and the word is decisions. Anyone who has walked on a healing journey, first and foremost, you had to decide to do it. For me, that was deciding that I could no longer tolerate the state of my life, my mindset, my emotional health, or many other things that were going on. And I had this kind of distress signal on the inside that prompted me to begin to make some changes. And so the first decision I had to make obviously was deciding that I wanted to do something about it rather than ignore it. The next decision I make, if I think all the way back, I decided to leave a job that I loved, but it was a very demanding job. And at the time, there were things going on within my marriage, I'm no longer in that marriage. And I was feeling stretched very thin between my personal responsibilities, motherhood, community responsibilities, and really trying to make sense of what was going on within my marriage. And so I made a decision to take a lesser demanding job to free up some mental bandwidth and time, honestly, because at that time I was commuting very long and I just needed to get some free time in my life to begin to address the things that were going on. And that was not an easy decision to make, but again, the desperation that I was feeling to make a change overrode those career aspirations on that particular path that I was on. But it wasn't an easy choice. And so for those of you walking and trying to focus on yourself, create space to focus on some healing, to get some clarity in life, you may come upon some very challenging decisions in order to reach that end goal that you have in mind, or even to begin walking down this unknown path of healing. It requires some tough decisions sometimes. As I alluded to or stated, the second decision that I made, major decision, was deciding to leave my marriage. And that was after, again, having that time of lesser responsibility and getting very clear about what was going on and determining that although on paper things looked great, we should have been able to kind of overcome and move through what was happening, my former spouse and I were just not on the same page in terms of growing, healing, and getting very honest about the pain that we were in and how to address and make the behavioral changes required in order for us to get healthy together and continue to be in that marital relationship. And so I made the decision to leave my marriage of 19 years. And if I must say so myself, it was the best decision in my life. Truly, no regrets on that. The best decision that I've made in this process. As painful as it was, as hard as it was, I would do it over again and again. And I'm making this content, just to provide maybe a mirror or information if someone else is in a similar scenario. And so I know that everyone's not always able to leave, whether that is a relationship, a job, an institution, or a community for various reasons. They could be financial, maybe safety is a concern. And so I think another decision that you can make if you have to remain in something or connected to someone that may not be the best for you, You can decide to advocate for yourself within that environment. Maybe you negotiate some new terms and conditions for how you will be treated, what you will tolerate. If it is a job, maybe deciding to dig on down in that employee handbook and understand your rights as an employee, understand what is available to you to be able to sustain yourself while there in a harmful environment until such time that you are able to leave, to make a change, to free yourself from that environment. I remember even while I was still within that marriage, before I decided to divorce, there was some renegotiation in those last few months, and I just made different decisions about what I was going to tolerate or not. And again, I was not in physical danger, so I just want to say I understand there may be somebody watching who is in a different scenario, and in that case, I would encourage you to decide to find appropriate support and resources for you to safely make some new terms and conditions and or make a safety plan of exit. But it's important to understand that there are decisions that need to be made. Let me look at my notes very quickly. Another decision I would say is deciding to move through and let go of pain, resentment, or bitterness. I believe in feeling my feelings and experiencing my emotions. My story is that a lot of times I would ignore or press down what I consider negative emotions, and that is not healthy. It was not healthy for me. But it is important not to get stuck in anger or stuck in a pattern that will lead you into bitterness or resentment. But feel your feelings, find ways to express that anger, and then release it. Release it from your body, release it from your mind so that you can continue to move forward. And so that may be, again, deciding to get into therapy. And within that decision to go to therapy, you don't have to just stop at the very first therapist that happens to line up with your insurance. Again, you can advocate for yourself until you find the right person that is going to connect with you to help you on your healing journey. There are many different types of therapy options, different personalities. Again, therapists are human. So make the decision to invest in yourself and continue to advocate until you find the right connection. I went through a couple of different therapists until I found someone that I was able to connect with who could meet me where I was and provide the different therapeutic options that I needed to help me work through the emotional distress that I was in. And so decide to invest in yourself, but also know that you can keep making additional decisions if those people, resources, or tools just don't seem to be meeting the needs that you have. Deciding to embark on healing and to stick with it requires a multitude of support and tools. And so you may find yourself having to make very critical decisions that you need the support in those moments. So do not be discouraged. I want to encourage you, if you're facing what seems like impossible decisions on top of the pain, take it one day at a time and find the resource one at a time. I know for me, as I said, it was over a course of years before I feel like I was truly on a path that I could really focus on myself, understand what was going on. And that took many decisions. Again, I've talked about some of those major ones, but there were also little ones along the way. And I think that is just a key to know that it's not this easy, quick thing that you can snap your fingers with, but it requires some intentional decision making to keep inching closer to that freedom, to that joy, to that lightness, to understanding yourself and making peace with what has happened to you, with what you have experienced in that unhealed version of yourself. And so, as I would continue to state, I would do it over again, even the very challenging moments where there was, it seemed like sometimes going backwards, because the decision to heal, we don't know what we don't know. And so it can feel like it's even hurting as you're healing. But I would encourage you to keep deciding to heal, keep deciding to move forward, and deciding to do whatever you need to do to make it happen for yourself. As always, I appreciate your views. I appreciate your comments and outreach. We'll be continuing this series all the way through 26 days, 26 letters in the alphabet. And I invite anyone who is on a healing journey or just, again, if this is interesting to you, to leave me some comments in the comment section or share with someone if you found this content valuable. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.